Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher of the 19th century, is known for his radical ideas on morality, the nature of existence, and human potential. One of his most famous and controversial concepts is the idea of the Übermensch, often translated as Overman or Superman. Introduced in his work Thus Spoke Zarathustra, 1883 to 1885, the Übermensch represents an idealized individual who transcends conventional morality, embraces personal freedom, and creates their own values in a world that Nietzsche believed had lost its traditional sense of meaning and purpose. The concept is central to Nietzsche's philosophy of individualism, the rejection of societal norms, and the affirmation of life in its fullest expression. At the heart of Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch is his response to the phenomenon of nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning or value. Nietzsche saw the decline of religion, especially Christianity, as a major factor in the rise of nihilism. In the absence of God and the moral frameworks built around religious beliefs, Nietzsche argued that humanity faced a deep existential crisis, where traditional values no longer held sway and people were left with a sense of purposelessness. The Übermensch, in Nietzsche's view, is the individual who confronts this existential void not with despair, but with courage and creativity. Unlike those who succumb to nihilism, the Übermensch creates their own meaning and values in an otherwise indifferent universe. The Übermensch is not bound by societal norms, religious dictates, or traditional morality. Instead, they live in accordance with their will to power, a fundamental drive that Nietzsche saw as the essence of life and human nature, the desire to grow, dominate, and shape one's own destiny. The Übermensch is not a superhuman in the traditional sense of physical power or intellectual superiority, but rather an individual who embodies the qualities of self-overcoming, autonomy, and self-mastery. Some key characteristics of the Übermensch include self-transcendence. The Übermensch constantly strives to overcome their own limitations, embracing change and growth. They reject complacency and are always in pursuit of higher forms of existence, continuously breaking through old boundaries to create new ones. Revaluation of values. The Übermensch rejects conventional morality, especially the traditional Christian moral code, which Nietzsche saw as life-denying. Instead, they affirm life as it is, including its challenges, suffering, and contradictions. The Übermensch creates their own values, rooted in their own experiences and desires, rather than adhering to inherited ideals. Will to power. Central to the idea of the Übermensch is the will to power, which Nietzsche saw as a fundamental force in all living beings, not just a desire for domination over others, but a broader drive for growth, self-assertion, and the realization of one's potential. The Übermensch channels this will to power to shape their own life, creating meaning and purpose out of what might otherwise be a meaningless world. Affirmation of life. Nietzsche's Übermensch is someone who embraces the totality of life, including its suffering, hardship, and chaos. This concept is closely related to Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence, the notion that one should live as though they would have to relive their life over and over again, eternally. The Übermensch affirms life in such a way that they would be willing to experience all its pain and joy indefinitely. Independence and autonomy. The Übermensch does not conform to the expectations of others or to the herd mentality. They are fiercely independent, making their own choices and creating their own path, without being swayed by popular opinion or external authority. This autonomy is not just political or social, but also deeply psychological, as the Übermensch is someone who governs their own inner life. Nietzsche's critique of contemporary society, particularly the modern world's reliance on reason, scientific rationalism, and organized religion, is intertwined with his concept of the Übermensch. Nietzsche believed that modern culture had become overly materialistic and disenchanted, and that people were trapped in a slave morality that stifled creativity, passion, and individualism. The Übermensch is a rejection of this passivity and conformity, a figure who lives authentically and with a sense of purpose beyond the dictates of society. For Nietzsche, The Übermensch represents the potential of humanity to rise above the limitations imposed by traditional values and create a new, life-affirming philosophy. Rather than looking for salvation in an afterlife or relying on external sources of meaning, the Übermensch finds power and fulfillment in this life alone. The concept of the Übermensch has often been misunderstood and misappropriated, especially in the context of political and ideological movements. Some early 20th century philosophers and political theorists, including proponents of fascism and Nazism, distorted Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch into a justification for racial superiority and authoritarian rule. However, Nietzsche himself was a strong critic of nationalism, anti-Semitism, and the militaristic tendencies of his time. His concept of the Übermensch is not about dominating or oppressing others, but about the elevation of the individual's potential. Moreover, Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch should not be taken as an ideal for everyone, but rather as a goal for exceptional individuals who have the strength and will to overcome societal constraints. The Übermensch is not an attainable standard for all, but a philosophical ideal that represents the highest form of human flourishing. Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch remains highly relevant in the modern world, especially in discussions about individualism, self-actualization, and the search for meaning in a secular age. In a world where traditional values are increasingly questioned and people seek personal freedom and autonomy, Nietzsche's Übermensch offers a powerful symbol of human potential and creativity. The Übermensch is a figure who embraces life in its fullest form, refuses to be constrained by external expectations, and seeks to create a world of their own making. In contemporary society, where many struggle with existential questions and a sense of meaninglessness, Nietzsche's call to embrace the will to power and the creation of personal values is both provocative and liberating. The idea of the Übermensch challenges us to think about what it means to live authentically, to pursue greatness on our own terms, and to rise above the mediocrity that often pervades modern life. The concept of the Übermensch in Nietzsche's philosophy represents an ideal of human potential, an individual who transcends societal norms and creates their own values in a world without inherent meaning. Nietzsche's Übermensch is not a tyrant or a conqueror, but a figure of personal transformation and self-mastery, someone who embraces the full spectrum of life, including its suffering, and affirms existence in its entirety. Though controversial and often misunderstood, the Übermensch remains a powerful symbol of human freedom, creativity, and the pursuit of higher values in a world that constantly challenges the individual.